Good evening, everyone. My name is Isaac Cashel, and I am the chairperson of this great group of individuals who comprise the community action. There are new faces here. We welcome the new members who we won't be able to officially recognize because we need to vote them in, but we thank you for your attendance and we appreciate everyone's efforts to make the trip in to attend person. So thank you all and welcome you all, and at the appropriate time when we can vote you in, we'll give each one of you the opportunity to officially introduce yourself. And at that point, we're gonna shine the spotlight.
Oh, no.
We'll now ask you, we need to officially do the roll call. Who has it?
Grace has it. She's the secretary.
Honorable Adrian Adams. Eric Adams, Honorable Eric Adams. Honorable Jeffrey Aubrey here. Honorable Brian Cunningham. Yesenia Cardona.
She's excused.
Claudia Kosher. Cynthia Cox. Ileana De La Rosa.
She's excused.
Honorable Vito J. Fostella. Gregory Hamburg is here.
Here.
Vice Chair. Honorable Vanessa L. Gibson. Honorable Brad Lander. Honorable Mark Levine.
That's fine. Okay.
Honorable Mark Levine.
Present.
Oh.
Where?
Online. She's online.
Oh,
Well, we can't
yeah, we can't count.
count.
Oh, you can't count.
No,
Paul May. Oh, excuse me.
Excuse.
Honorable Krista Marstein. Gideon. Joseph Pierre.
Excused.
Gladys Pena. Deleta Pena.
Yeah.
Pena. Honorable Roxanne Persaud. Honorable Antonio Reynoso.
here.
Honorable Donovan Richards. Present. Jackie Rowe Adams. Honorable Althea Stevens. St. Francis College, Robert Oliva, Tirani Street. Christopher Toomer.
Here.
Honorable Sandra Ung.
Here.
Ariel Savronsky. Nora Moran.
Here.
Samantha Moyal.
Here.
Justin Westbrook Lowry. Honorable Yamani Williams.
Online.
Present.
No?
Online. She's online.
Online, can you count?
Oh,
Right, was it?
that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, that.
5 short. Mhm.
Unfortunately, we have not achieved quorum. So we won't be able to have recognition of the new members, nor can we have the public hearing, which is required. And we can't accept the minutes of the previous meetings either. Now we ask Chris Lewis, the Assistant Commissioner, Bureau of Budget and Finance, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, be so kind and give the financial program quarterly report.
Yes, thank you for that introduction. Good evening all. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yes, we can, Chris. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for your time. I'm going to be here previewing for you all DYCD's budget and expenditure reporting for the Community Services Block Grant. Let me just share my screen for a moment.
Sure.
And once it's shared, can everyone in the room see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. High level overview. Our community services block grant funding totals about $36.5 million for this city's fiscal year 2024. Of that funding, about 80% of it, or $28.8 million, are committed to direct program contracts across a litany of community development programs, including the neighborhood development programs, immigrant family programs, literacy, summer youth employment, and fatherhood programming. In addition to these direct programs, there's also other contractual services totaling about $2.6 million, as well as funding for DYCD staff to help administer and oversight for these programs, totaling about $5 million. That's the breakout for the funding for CSBG. As of October 30th, on the direct program contract side, DYCD has invoiced about $2.2 million of these funds, with about $6 million going out directly to our provider contracts and disbursements. Flagging for the group the discrepancy between what's been invoiced year to date and what's been dispersed is due to initial advances that go out to our providers to help support in cash flow and startup expenses to help facilitate the initiation of programs. So as the year concludes, you'll note that our disbursements and invoices come more or less in line. But as of this reporting, we're at just about 8% of our total award invoiced, and nearly a quarter of it dispersed at this point. In terms of program contracts. For our other contractual services, again, this is a smaller bunch. Oh, before I move on, I also just kind of want to flag a couple of areas where you may not be seeing expenses and payments to this point. You may be wondering why the summer youth employment program item line is not showing invoices and expenses. It's not because these expenses haven't been incurred. It's just that this program is reflective of how DYCD performs its claiming processes, and due to our cost allocation methodology for our SYP participants, we have not yet reported out expenses against this area. But be assured that if not in the next meeting, in one of the coming up meetings between the next one and the one following, this group will see that their expenses for the summer youth employment program to report. On the other contractual front, about 2% of the total budget amount has been invoiced to date. And on the other contractual front, because these are fee for services and there aren't as many initial advances, our invoices match our disbursements for these areas of the grant funding. And then lastly, in terms of DYCD staffing, the same idea here as noted for SYEP. Of our $5 million budget for personal service DYCD staff utilizing CSBG funds, we have not reported expenses or disbursements just yet. And again, that's just due to our claiming methodology and our process. Cost allocations have not occurred yet, but there are expenses that will be shown on the report in the presumably by the next CAB meeting. We should have some expenses to report on PS. And lastly, some trend analysis, how our expenses have lined up since our last meeting on September 9th when my colleague Artisan Mogan reported. So during the last report, we only had about $150,000 in total CSBG expenses. To date, now we have close to $2.3 million of those expenses, with the variance about 2.1, which is relatively, 20-fold increase in terms of our expenses. So we're absolutely starting to ramp up and receiving invoices from our provider community to that effect. And then on the payment side, last reporting period, we had about $2.2 million of payments to date. Now we're up to over $6 million in disbursements that have gone out to the sector. A variance of about just shy of $4 million, or an increase of about 200%. That pretty much concludes the reporting that we have on CSBG expenses. I'll stop here at this point to see if there are any questions from the collective group.
No question?
Okay. All right. Thank you all. And if there are any,
We have one question.
Sorry,
sure.
Marty
Yes.
Moss. So we hear from a lot of the providers that have to expend service money from their own accounts for services and then wait for funding to be provided to them to reimburse themselves for the services that they're providing. Is there a way to be proactive about that, or how does that dynamic work with the budget as it is?
Got it. Great question. So this is kind of what I was alluding to in terms of our advanced process relative to the year-to-date invoiced. So your colleague is correct. So DYCD's program service contracts are handled on a cost reimbursement model. So essentially, the provider on a month-to-month basis incurs expenses. At the conclusion of that month, they then report out how much they've actually expended or what cost they've incurred over the course of that month, submit an invoice to DYCD for reimbursement for the prior month that had concluded. Of course, that does kind of give the impression that it's a situation where essentially the provider has to upfront cost. However, to try to mitigate the circumstances in which a provider has to come up with paying for the expenses through the contracts that we have agreed to with those groups, we mitigate that by putting forward typically an advance that's equal to about 25% of the total value of the contract at the start of registration and budget launch for that fiscal year. So what we do is so that providers are not in a situation in which they're incurring and floating costs without DYCD having put forward some of those expenses towards their budget. 25% of that funding goes out to them in the initial outset, and then as they incur expenses and submit invoices, they get reimbursed for the full amount of those invoices as they come in. As you get 6 months down the line or so, depending on the timing of your registration, DYCD then, through the repayment of subsequent invoices, goes through a process of recouping or recovering, I should say, not recouping, a portion of the advance funds against what that provider submits in terms of approved expenses. So that was just kind of a breakdown on the nitty-gritty of it, but just to kind of high level overview, essentially the way our budgeting contracting works is you have a contract, it gets registered at the start of budget launch. DYCD initiates an advance for 25% of the value of your approved budget. Each month, you invoice what your expenses are for that month, and DYCD repays that invoice in full as long as the expenses are approved. And then once we get to a point later on in the contract term, we then recover some of the excess dispersed funds that have gone out to the provider by paying a little bit less on subsequent invoices as they come in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions?
Donovan has.
That mic.
Here.
Hi, Donovan Swanson with the Brooklyn Borough President's Office. I asked this question last time we were presented these figures, and I can't remember if there was a commitment to at least identify some trends. Understanding that providers can request an advancement, I was curious as to the trends around program contracts. You know, are we seeing more providers along certain contracts utilizing this and like tapping really into that advancement? Because on the ground, hearing exactly what you're saying, and that being a former provider, managing this contract, I'm definitely aware. But really trying to see again, are we seeing, let's just say, neighborhood development group contracts requesting their full advancement, whereas maybe immigrant legal services is not tapping into that, because that might be an outreach piece, that might be a communication piece. So I just really would love to see some data on that. So just elevating that again. Thank you.
No, thank you for the question and the flag. I can go back to my colleague Artis Samugan just to kind of clarify and see what work has been done between the two meetings to capture that request. But to kind of clarify, I know you had pointed out specifically like immigration and immigrant legal services. The key flag there again is registered contract approved budget, right? You know, as a former Compass provider, I'm sure you're aware that those are the two key pieces of information, or I should say events that have to take place before DYCD can issue the advance. And again, that's just good governance trying to ensure that the outlined expenses that the provider is submitting to support the services that we would like our community to receive are in line with the scope of the work that these contracts are meant to offer. So just ensuring first that we see a budget that can support the services that are intended. Once we get that and that's approved, that's when an advance can go out. This reporting is very high level, and you know, acknowledging that you're not going to see on this high level summary a drill down into how many of the providers are receiving advances, but I think I can bring this information back and work with our colleagues in the community development unit to kind of figure out what's the most useful way to kind of outline that information in a way that's not meant to overwhelm. I hope that was helpful in addressing your question.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner Lewis, for your report. I will now ask
Thank you all.
Associate Commissioner Ron Zhang to say a few words.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Since we have since we have not reached quorum as we expected, so I will not do the commissioner's report as planned. However, I just want to take the opportunity, take a moment to welcome the new members, and thank you very much for your time and commitment. And we look forward to working with you in this very important role. I wanted to say that I wanted to stress that it is really imperative that members come to these meetings in person so that the CAB can conduct its official business. As we have communicated that due to the open meetings law, coming back, we need to come back to do the meeting in person. Of course, we can do a public hearing so that those who need to be attending this meeting through remotely can do that. But we need a public hearing. We need a resolution to be made to allow that happen. And we were not able to do it last time, and we can't do it this time. It's really unfortunate. But this is the CAB business is a very serious one. We do very important work. So we hope that everybody on board will make an effort to come in person, and we hope to see you here. And we'd love to see your faces here in person. Thank you.
Yeah, the departments and you call.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why. Thanks for reminding me.
Sure.
Right. I also want to recognize that we have, three representatives from the state. They're here to serve. Amy, you want to say?
Hi, I'm Amy Fuller, with the Department of State. It's been a long time since I've been in this room with you guys, and I'm excited to be able to come back. And, you know, as I think I say every time, we appreciate the work that you do for DYCD. A strong board makes a strong agency, and we appreciate your work, and I thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Victor Pereira, Program Analyst. Thank you for having us and thank you for the dedication that you have for it. Great work that you guys continue to do.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Saeed Ahmed, Program Analyst from the New York City office. I work with Amy and Victor, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Associate Commissioner, and it's great to see our important colleagues from New York State Department of State who personally came to attend this meeting. Thank you for being here, and we're honored by your presence. Moving along, Anita, are they gonna do the
Annual
CFPG
report.
annual report?
Kathy?
Yes, Kathy and you.
Oh, where? I don't know. I don't have to help them. You don't know. Okay, let's go to the- I don't think that. I'm trying. Sorry. Technical difficulties again. While we're waiting, our colleague, David, who used to be with us, has gone on to Twitter and everything. I'd like him to say a few words. David, come over here so people can see you. Wherever you're gonna stay, I'm gonna put the camera.
Hello, everybody. David Aguilar, hello to everybody on Zoom, hello to the executive board, hello to everybody in the crowd. Just wanted to come and visit. I've moved on to the new unit, so I'm still in basically the DYCD family, but I'm now I'm doing work in the strategic partnership and based in neighborhood strategy. So looking forward to basically the new role, but I wanted to come back to the family of Nav and Cap. So, I'm going to see everybody.
And then we have, because David is gone and Mitch moved on to discretionary. We now have new staff, so I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Adedeji. Who is let people see you. there, and there is Zamari Orana, who came from the sanctuary. And Susan was here. I don't know where she went. She's been with us a long time, just like Karen. For years and years and years. And then we have another one, Reginald Gibson. He's out sick today, unfortunately. He couldn't be here. But that's our new staff, that's the liaison unit. And of course, there's me. I'm still here. So.
We're trying to share it, it's not allowing us to share.
But we can't see it from here.
Right.
You gotta look on.
We'll just look on the Zoom. Put it on the Zoom.
Yeah, because
There
this
you
is
go.
this is what we're trying to share.
For the reason the screen is shared, so what we're gonna do.
Go share.
Oh, Chris left the share.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. it's-
So that, and then we are going.
So it gives me great pleasure to have Kathleen and Judith present the CSPG annual report.
And it gives me great pleasure that Mark Benavides is helping us. with that.
And thank you, Mark, great assistance.
I have your.
I was gonna say, where, I need my papers.
These are my- You can use mine.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. So my name is Kathleen Almanzar. I am the Senior Director for Literacy and Immigrant Services and also the Compliance Validation Unit, the data piece. So these are our numbers for fiscal year 24. I know most of you already know the history of the Community Service Block Grant. It dedicates itself to promoting self-sufficiency among low-income New Yorkers through various citywide initiatives, as well as the revitalization and the investment into 41 neighborhood development areas. So in 19, you have the different stages of the war against poverty. So in 1964, you have, where's my notebook? Is my little blue notebook over there? Yes, that's where my notes are. Sorry. I haven't done in-person presentation in a very long time. So I'm a little rusty, bear with me. So this is the federal legislation establishing a variety of social programs aimed at facilitating education, health, employment, and the general welfare for impoverished Americans. And that was sort of like the start of the war on poverty. Then you have in 1975, the Community Service Act. It provides increased involvement of state and local governments in the anti-poverty efforts and for other purposes. So in 1981, which is now known as the Community Service Block Grant, federally funded block grant in the Office of Community Services Administration for Children and Families, provides funds to states, territories, and tribes to administer and to support services that alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty in under-resourced communities. So this is what we do. This is what our programs are to help alleviate the issues of poverty throughout New York City. Next slide. So we'll start with different program areas, and we're going to go through the enrollment and outcomes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Judith Sam. I'm the Senior Director of Community Action Programs. So we'll kick it off with our NDA high school programs. All right, I have the PowerPoint here, so I have to stretch my neck.
I went the wrong way, sorry.
All right, so our projected enrollment for our India high school programs were 1,225. We were able to enroll a total of 1,391 high school youth between the ages grades 9 and 12, right? So our projected completion of internships was 914. And the actual completion of our internships were 649. A lot of that was attributed to the fact that, internships is offered to all high school youth in our programs. However, we ran into some issues where some of the high school youth already had after-school jobs, whether it was in retail and many of our different after-school programs. So that was why the numbers were a little bit low in terms of the internships, right? And then our projected improvement in SEL skills, social emotional learning, was 685, but the actual improvement of social emotional learning skills was 398. So this was year one of our high school contract, brand new program area to many of our new providers who are also new to DYCD. So there was a lot of challenges around understanding what the goal was around implementing social emotional learning. So we were able to partner with a TA provider who were experts in the field of social emotional learning, and they trained us DYCD staff in developing frameworks, and we were able to turnkey that information to our providers, and we provide them ongoing training and coaching. So we're definitely seeing a significant improvement in implementing social emotional learning into our high school programs. Okay. So next I'll talk about our NDA seniors. Okay, so our projected enrollment for our NDA seniors program was 1,438. We actually enrolled 1,160. Our projected outcomes in benefits and services achieved was 863. Our actual numbers of achievement was 511. I'll talk more about that in a second. Our projected improvement, our actual numbers with seniors demonstrated positive physical, psychological, and well-being. The projection was 863 and our actual was 449. And then our projected for seniors demonstrated self-advocacy skills was 259, and we were able to do 398. So as far as the demonstrated positive physical, psychological, and well-being, as well as the achieving benefits and services. So a lot of what attributed to the low percentage in that was, the senior programs, number one, many of our senior programs providers are new. Due to the shift in the NDA areas and stuff there, we inherited new providers who were now learning about the model and implementation of the model. In addition to that, post-COVID, a lot of seniors didn't want to come in person, right? Didn't want to come in person to some of the programs and participate and engage. In addition to that, with the high risk of crime, a lot of seniors are concerned about their safety, so they were a little hesitant to come into our in-person services to get some of the well-needed services that they needed. And in terms of the self-advocacy skills, that was more, on an individual level. So we were able to still, whether it's through teleconferencing, talking to them over the phone, or getting them to come in person, we were able to, support a lot of seniors with, teaching them how to use technology, especially on their cell phones. Like, a lot of seniors are hesitant about, putting their information on their cell phones. So we taught them safe ways to go about doing that and making life a little bit more efficient and easy for them. So that's that. Next up is economic development. So economic development is also a new program area. So the projected enrollment for economic development was 998. We were actually able to enroll 854. The projected so in terms of our outcomes, we projected that 599 individuals or partners would gain skills for starting, developing, or maintaining businesses, and our actual was 138. And then we also projected that 360 jobs will be created to increase opportunities for people with low income in the NDA, and our actual numbers were 147. So economic development being a new program area, also to DYCD, there was a lot of, a few bumps on the road, really understanding how to achieve the outcomes specific to economic development. So we actually worked very closely with our providers. We surveyed them, we had focus groups that talked to us about what aspiring entrepreneurs, existing small business owners, what are they coming in to really, what kind of services are they really coming in to get? And based on that, we were able to update our systems and our outcomes to add additional outcomes, such as, they help the an aspiring entrepreneur obtain their LLC, right? So something as small as that, we were able to add it into our system. So now providers are able to check these things off as, successfully achieving those outcomes. So we're hoping to see more of an increase in these two outcome areas. Okay. Yep. Next. Crime and safety. So crime and safety is important to note that this is a community program, whereas the other ones are more participant-based, individualized. This is a community program where we recruit members from the community, right? This is also a new program area to NDA. So in FY23, we only had one program that was operational. We did award another provider a contract in January, and then our most recent, due to a reissue, we were able to also award a new provider in Far Rockaway just this month alone. So they're getting started as well, right? So with the one program that was operational since the beginning of FY23, they were able to enroll and engage 27 community members from the Jacob Reese community area in Queens, Long Island City. They were able to recruit 227 volunteers to help create a community mural in Astoria, Queens. All right, so that's where we at with crime and safety. And I didn't really go over the numbers, but y'all see it there, right?
Okay. Go back. You need me to go back or are we okay? Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, I don't know if this is last but not, no, it's not last but not least. Okay, NBA Healthy Families. So this is one of our strongest program areas where we support the community with participants with benefits and services. So where our Healthy Family programs are in 36 out of the 41 NDAs, right? And we have historically been successful in meeting our numbers with healthy families. We service youth, adults, families in obtaining benefits and services. All right, so the actual the projected enrollment for healthy families was 5,143. We were able, the projected was 5,245. We were able to enroll 5,143. Our projected individuals and families to obtain benefits and services was 3,576. The actual was 3,734. Our projected numbers for individuals demonstrating self-advocacy skills were 1,073, and we were able to actually achieve 1,118. Okay, strongest program. So the other ones are getting there too. All right, fatherhood. So fatherhood, bear with me, my notes. Okay, so with fatherhood, the projected enrollment for our fatherhood programs for FY23 was 1,460. We were actually able to enroll 1,225. Our projected outcome for providing financial support and increased engagement, availability and responsibility in relationships with a child or children. The projected number for that was 1,004. 1,460, and we were able to achieve 86%, which was 1,215. And then our projected numbers for fathers obtaining benefits and services were 860, was 869, and our actual was 654. FDC. Okay. FDC credentialing, right? So for that one, if I can't see over there. Nope, I have it. Okay. So for FDC, Family Development Credentialing, so many of our program areas requires a staff to have their family development credentials, right? So throughout all of our NDA programs, the projected number of people to apply or staff or providers to apply was 150. We had 158 people apply. The projected number for staff at our providing agencies to receive their credentials was 117, but the actual was 114. Okay, summer youth employment. So summer youth employment, we basically over 100,000 young people were able to take part in summer youth employment, and of that, CSBG funds goes towards 3,500 slots. So 3,500 youth that participated in summer youth were funded by our CSBG. And then last but not least on my end is technical assistance, right? So for technical assistance, you know, first and foremost, DYCD, we increased in size and the number of staff within the agency. Therefore, there was a greater need for training all of our new staff in addition to our existing staff. So the projection for TA was 2,451, and the actual TA provided was to our staff was 4,268. And then the projected amount to gain skills was 1,390, and the actual was 2,233. And that concludes my part of the presentation.
Wow, we're gonna switch sides. Yep. So I'm gonna start off with the adolescent literacy. So this is a continuation. We have more program areas to go over. So adolescent literacy is a middle school program. The numbers, we had a little hiccup with the numbers this year. One of our providers was new to the program area, so they had a little bit of a later start, and then two other providers had a bit of a hiccup with getting the kids in. And part of that is you're competing with the Compass program. So a kid would rather be in the Compass program than the adolescent literacy because they feel that that's more of an academic, and I want to have fun. I want to play. I want to hang out with my friends. So that's where we had a little bit of a hiccup, but we're working well, and so far this year, they're on point to meet their enrollment numbers. The outcomes, we had a bigger hiccup because of the fact is the ELA scores. So this is based on ELA scores. They came out pretty late this year, and the providers had trouble getting DOE to provide the scores, or some of the kids graduated and went to high school and didn't come back to the program to say, here are my scores from last year. Also, with this, the ELA is an exam that can be opt out. So a parent can choose for their child not to take the test. So you could have a kid involved in this program, and if the parent opts them out for the test, then we're not going to achieve an outcome. And then the other thing we saw in one of our programs is that they're seeing a lot of the English language learners. So that attributed to a lot of the migrant kids being enrolled in the classes. So they cannot take the ELA exam. So they take, there's a supplement exam for them. but that doesn't count towards this. So, you know, so that's another thing that attributed to the low numbers, because we really need to see the actual scores to see that there was a gain in those ELA scores. So, you know, that's something to think about for the rest of this fiscal year in case those numbers continue to decline because of the ELA test. Next slide. So NDA adult literacy. So this year it's year one of the new RFP, but also this year it's only one provider that is funded. In the past, it's been about 16 providers. So what happened is that only one NDA felt that ABE-HSC was a priority for their neighborhood. So the one provider is actually new to that specific neighborhood. So in order to get to know the people, to get the students in, they struggled to do that. They have been working on changing schedules, class times, the schedules. They've been working on outreach with their own agency, because they're actually a big agency that can get referrals. They're also working on outreaching in the community. They've been participating in different meetings that DYCD holds. DYCD is now holding the strategic partnerships, and that they're holding community meetings. So we've been involving them in community meetings to actually help them build up their student base. So we're hoping that these new things that we're trying for next year will help them. Because of low enrollment, obviously you have very low, outcomes, And then another thing with attributing with some of the outcomes is that it was hard to get a seat to take the HSCE exam. So that was another thing that most providers across the city were experiencing. Next slide. So adult literacy ESOL, it's not hard to get, it's hard to get a seat in these classes. So they do quite well. We have CSBG slots. The classes are usually long waiting lists to get into. It's always a need for more and more classes. So, there's not much to say. They pre-test, post-test, helping them, continue on with their education and hopefully getting them into an adult basic education class. But, it's a program area that does quite well on its own with very little promotion. Next slide. Okay, so immigrant workers. These are the next four program areas are the legal service program areas that for fiscal 23 was the last year they were under the supervision of HRA. Okay, they have now returned to DYCD. So this program area, the immigrant workers, numbers were pretty much, on point. It's a peer program. They keep everything running pretty smoothly. They teach people how to advocate for their rights, help them also get recoup in wages, and it's all a peer learning. So it's a pretty good program that has been sustaining itself. It's had hiccups here and there, but overall it does quite well. So legal services for immigrant youth. This is helping the immigrants, young immigrants that are considered the unaccompanied minors. So most of the struggle with this is the backlog from USCIS. So USCIS has a long waiting period for next steps. So with most of the time with the youth, they have to first be deemed an unaccompanied minor by the family court. Then until that piece is done, then they can file for what's called special juvenile immigrant status. So it's steps that hold them back. Family court is also still backlogged. So enrollment, in order to enroll, they have to get them to certain steps first. Then also at the same time, when the filing, we also still have a backlog in getting the receipts from USCIS. So that contributes to proof of our outcomes. And also at the same time, one of the things that we have seen also is that some of our program areas, we're also having trouble using our system. So since DYCD is the holder of the participant tracking system, I think HRA and the providers we're struggling with learning how to use it. They're back with us now for 24, and we've been giving them aggressive TA trainings, one-on-one trainings, group trainings. So we're hoping that the enrollment and the data entry is going to be much robust, moving forward. Next slide. So immigrant legal services, this is now for more or less, this is not a specific category. It can be for citizenship, it can be for green cards, TPS, all different various. So once again, the same thing, they're struggling, backlog at USCIS, backlog in appointments, backlog in representation, backlog in getting the actual receipts. So that's the one thing that the providers are saying. Things are taking much longer than what it was in the past. So cases that were normally adjudicated within a year are taking anywhere from 2 to 3 years, even up to 4 years. So exactly. So it's a struggle. And that's why also same thing with numbers are low, but and once again, the need for it is great, but also at the same time, this group also needs help with PTS using our system. And that's one of our main focuses is teaching them and making sure that everything is documented and reported appropriately, because in speaking to them, the number should have been higher, but what we see from our system is not, but we're working with them to provide them all the support that they need. Next slide. So this is NDA Immigrant Application Assistance under Immigrant Services. So this program area, it's not new, but it sort of is new. It was a branch off of what we had in the past. In the past, it also had ESOL civics component to it, but we branched those two off and they separated. So application assistance, we had a hiccup with one provider starting very late because they didn't have the proper staffing, and these are programs that we take very serious, and we make sure that we have the proper staffing. So any of these legal services programs, they have to have an attorney on staff, or they have to be BIA accredited, which is the Board of Immigration Appeals, accreditation. So it took them a while, but they started late. So the lateness sort of triggered the numbers, and once you have low enrollment, it affects your outcomes. But they're ready to go. We're giving them the TA they need to make sure that they're ready. They're doing well so far. Working on meeting the numbers. So our staff is really dedicated in making sure that our providers have the resources that they need to make the program successful. Next slide. So NDA Immigrant ESOL Civic. So this is the second branch of what was the former NDA Immigrant Services. Like I said, ESOL, the numbers are always there. It's always a waiting list. This ESOL classes, they're taught with a civics component. So part of it is teaching them about New York City, teaching about, being a good citizen, being a neighbor, also prepping them in certain areas for the citizenship exam. So that's where this is slightly different from the regular ESOL. So this is taught in the context of civics. And they don't have to go out and advertise to get numbers. They usually, like I said, they usually have a waiting list to get into classes. Okay, next slide. So immigrant families, it's taken a bit to get used to the program area. They are servicing families, so it's at least 2 people that are being serviced. So that's 302 families, but actually that number is definitely at least doubled of the number of people being served, or even more, because there are some families that are 3 or 4, and it does quite well with the benefits and services. So that if you look at the bottom goal is the achievement of personal goals. So personal goals is that they set up goals for themselves, whether it's helping them get ESOL classes, helping them get food stamps, housing. So those are goals that they set up, services that they need. Then the advocacy is one of the things that we are aiming to is to show them how to advocate for themselves, because most of the time they're timid. They don't know how to do that. So it's through workshops and through pre-test, post-test in the workshops. So those are coming along because they're tied to workshops. Once again, we still have the issue of people still not wanting to come out in the evening because of crime or because they're still afraid of COVID. So some do a few workshops online, which kind of help, but the in-person piece, you still have some people that are sort of still afraid to come out and participate. So, all right. So we have this is one of the other legal services that was under HRA. So the victims of domestic violence and trafficking. So they have specific set goals, and they each year numbers can vary in the different types of services that they have to provide. So sometimes they could be working with someone, and the goal is the immigration piece, but then the second time the goal could be the safety. So it depends on what the automatic priority is. So that's why you see most of the time with this, they said one of the things that the two providers have noticed for this year that just passed, they said that the priority was the applications this time. Most of them had already achieved safety in a previous year or in another manner. So that's why you see the numbers sort of are one is higher than the other, but they do make sure that people get help with safety. They get assistance with whether it's food insecurities. So it could be many other things, but unfortunately that number was a little lower, but it should have been captured a little better. And then I'm suspecting that 20% could possibly be higher due to reporting in the PTS system. So yeah, that's it. Is that the last slide? And that's it. Any questions for us, I guess? Yes.
So I'm gonna go backward because I have a lot of questions.
That's okay. That's what we're here for.
I'm gonna start like the victims of domestic violence and trafficking.
Okay.
So you said that they provide safety, food security, and so forth. Is that through HRA?
No, it's not. It's we have there's two providers. It's Sanctuary for Families, and the second one is Urban Justice. Is it Urban Justice? Yes, it's Urban Justice. So they do the legal services piece, and then they have social workers on board that help them get the different services that they need. I'm pretty sure they work with different components of HRA and different other city agencies to help them, but they are the main providers that do this.
What is the total amount? Do you know?
The
like,
dollar
total
amount on that, not too sure. I know all of the 4 legal services is about $2 million. But that exact amount, I don't know off the top of my head. We could get that number back to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
2 contracts.
Yes, there are 2 contracts. There are 2 contracts that I can tell you.
Okay, and then you said something about the PTS system.
So that's the participant tracking system, DYCD. All of our programs put in data based on so it's demographics. It is
tracking.
we track different things. There's notes, case notes. You're tracking outcomes. There's different. What we do is individual service plans are done in there. So this all the provider does all of this work. So the data that they put in is the data that you're seeing there. So as good as their data entry is also as good as we can show, because we have seen that sometimes numbers are low because they were behind in data entry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we like I said, we work with them. They get trained. There's trainings are offered throughout the year on using PTS. When our program managers go out, they're like, okay, you're behind. You need technically. I know for our programs, the expectation is you shouldn't be more than 2 weeks behind in getting data entry. So that's the expectation. So, but sometimes, things happen, things get caught up, and we understand that. and we work with the providers to make sure, they know when we're coming out most of the time. So, you know, they kind of like
Scramble.
scramble to get the data in, or they're like, I need an extension, I need my data to go in. So, you know, we work with them, and, you know, because our job is to make sure that we have it, because this is what we need to report. And if the data doesn't go in, then that's why your numbers kind of, you hear one thing from them, but then what my data showing, and we do tell them, if it's not in the system, I can't count it yet.
And that's how they get approvals for funding for the, okay,
No, this is not performance based.
okay.
Yeah, if they, when their contracts are approved, they have to submit, they have to submit a budget, and then it's their responsibility to submit invoices in a timely manner.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, you know, I know that we try to make sure our providers get their budgets approved so they can access their funding.
Okay, and then you had a part about the adolescents literacy. I had a question on who are the providers that are providing?
So there's 8 providers, and off the top of my head, I'm gonna probably forget. We've got Canva, we've got 2 RF CUNY, what they're called is CUNY Cat, right? Creative, yes, right. We've got Sunnyside, we've got JCC of Staten Island. We have Lower East Side Girls Club. We have, and then we have 2 Children's Aid Society, one in the Bronx and one in Manhattan. I got them all.
Yeah, and you were saying like they wanted to do more of the fun stuff than.
So what we hear from the providers, because out of the 8 contracts, 7 are inside a school. One is center-based. The ones that are inside the school, you have the competing competition of the other programs that are running at the same time. So that's the thing. So the kids are like, I'd rather go to this because this is all fun and games than go here. And also they've also said that it's sort of like some kids feel it as being like, oh, you got referred to that, you're not smart.
Oh.
So they kind of also feel like it's like a stigmatism to be enrolled in that program. So that's why the providers try to make it a lot of fun of the learning the literacy during digital literacy, cooking classes, and at one time they did something with building boats and they're getting really creative on it. So, you know, but the thing is that you got to get that word out. So some of them think of it as just as an academic, and I'm not going to have any fun.
Got it.
So that's why you have people like, I'd rather go to the Compass program.
Understood. Okay, and then for Healthy Families, the Healthy Families program?
I was hoping. She went backwards. I just noticed she totally went backwards.
But yeah, Healthy Families program, like, tell me more about that program. How does it work? What is the age limit that it starts at?
Right. So it services the family. So a family can consist of a child, a teenager, adults, whatever the family, you know, comprises of. So there's not really any specific age. So one person comes in and everybody in their family could possibly get service, right? So basically, it basically supports a family in obtaining benefits and services. So SNAP, health insurance. They also provide different types of workshops based on the need in that particular NDA. So, you know, I went to one recently and they were doing a nutrition workshop for the participants that were there. They partnered with a organization that does the nutrition workshops and then also assist them in getting SNAP, right? And how to pick healthy foods and so forth. So, like I said, don't ask me the name of the providers. I'm fairly new. We have 30. There's 36 of them. I'm fairly new to, you know, my role in learning about all the different providers. But we do have 36 within our 40 out of our 41 NDAs.
And I skipped over the summer youth employment program. So you said there were 100,000 jobs that were provided through summer youth employment program, but 35,000, what?
3,500 is funded specifically. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then who funded the rest of
City.
The city.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then as far as economic development, you were talking about job creation.
Right.
And so you said 360 jobs were created out of that. And that is assisting small business owners with job opportunities or small.
So helping, aspiring entrepreneurs. A combination of aspiring entrepreneurs, so those who have a business that they want to start but don't know where to start, right? So they come in and they get support with developing a business plan, small business one-on-one workshops, and in addition to current business owners who just need help with expanding what they currently have. So when we say jobs will be created to increase opportunities for people with low income. So if basically the program model is if we're able to provide the necessary support and services to those aspiring entrepreneurs and current business owners who are developing these businesses within their communities, then more jobs will be created in that particular community. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. There's two questions, one here and one there.
How do people find out about these programs? Do you guys market?
So most of the time, the providers do their own marketing. But we also have Discover DYCD as a search engine on the DYCD website, where you can put in whatever type of services you're looking for. You can do like by borough, by zip code, and then the search engine will bring up different types of programs. Then depending on your program area, you could pre-register and then the provider calls you back and then you can come in and then, start on next steps.
So that's dependent on the family of the person finding the website.
Right, so, but most of the time, it's
The providers. The
providers
providers
that do
are
their
required to
outreach.
do their outreach,
Yeah.
right, in the community.
Yeah, so I think the DYCD search engine is actually being used a lot more by like another provider. So it's like, I know I need to help, I do ESOL classes, but this person I have here needs after school for their child. They'll use the search engine to help them, find something, we've been, part of the thing is we teach our providers to use the search engine to find other programs that DYCD has that they may not offer.
Thank you. I'll try to be concise. I mean, the one thing I'll just say as a suggestion, this is great, and I love that you clearly know these contracts intimately, but it would be nice in these presentations to just include the number of awards to give context to the numbers. Because the only time I personally see it is when we're getting our budget report, right?
Right.
And again, former Compass, so when the data entry piece, I completely get. One question.
Off the bat, I can give you my numbers.
So, one quick question is, and I guess I don't know if this is just dictated by the RFP that goes out, or if this is something where there's flexibility. Having been on the data entry side, at what point when we start to see these outcomes or a failure to enter proper data, do we sit down with providers and say, how can we make what we're requiring for you to enter more manageable and or the information being captured correctly? Because sometimes I've been on the side where it's like, you're asking me this, but this isn't a good question for me as a provider, but what would be good for me to answer X, Y, and Z, and there's not opportunity for
Right,
that.
so most of the time it's the first visit, so we do multiple visits throughout the year, so we don't just see you one time. So I know for some of us it's anywhere from 3 to 4 visits a year.
Okay.
So usually the first visit, we wait till right after the first quarter, because we give them time to do data entry, also depending on the way a program enrolls. So an adolescent program, I'm not gonna go visit until maybe November because they don't start enrollment till late September, early October. So that's where you're looking at it. That's where you're also keeping in contact with your providers. Just because you're not going out to visit doesn't mean you can't check on their numbers and see how they're doing. So one of the things we do is on a quarterly basis, even if we're not going out, we're checking out where the numbers, because we also have to report these numbers on a quarterly basis to the state.
What's the ratio of manager to, again, every contract has a different number of awards, but think about your largest contract awarded, right? What's the ratio of that per step point person?
The program manager.
Yeah,
to
to
the number
the-
of programs they have, on average, anywhere between 1 PM program manager to between 15 and 20 programs.
So that's.
I know.
On that's one, yeah, that's
Our
what our
end
end,
is
yeah.
32, our PMs do oversee 32. some of their contracts have over 1,000 enrollments.
Got it. And again, I understand, I'm trying to run through my questions, so thank you.
Yep.
Quick question regarding,
And I just want to add to the data piece to it. At some point, if it's just something that they're not being responsible for, that's when the strategic action plans come in.
Yeah.
And then if it keeps being an issue, that's when the corrective action
Action
plan
plans,
comes in. And then it ultimately affects their performance evaluation at the end, what we call their agency report card.
yeah.
Yes, yes, and then
Um,
that affects maybe future funding applying, because we look at your report card and see how you've been doing with our funding.
Got it. On the NTA economic development piece, and just because, from an elected's perspective, right, I go out to schools, I'm also in charge of all our DOE engagement. We're seeing a large need for young entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Right, so I was wondering if that's included in the numbers, if
It is.
that's being factored in.
It is included in the numbers because they are able to enroll younger entrepreneurs. I think the challenges that we've been seeing with that is providers needing support in being able to outreach to that demographic and pull them into the program.
I'm fairly
Right.
confident if there was proper outreach or professional development.
You will have
on
more-
engage with principals,
I agree.
you would
I-
very easily, they know at least 10 students that want to start their own business.
Well, can you let me,
So,
right,
so
definitely,
just
definitely.
two last questions.
Okay.
One is specifically to summarizing. I understand that it's part of a larger thing, we clearly know, right? Like elected, but the city
Predated me.
council throws in, so it's not just CSBG funding. However, again, really capturing some of the outcomes, I just felt like just to say we contributed to this number of seats doesn't do the program justice. So that would be, I guess that's
So
more.
But some of you mean some of you.
Or summary,
Yes,
excuse
yes.
me. Not summarizing, excuse me.
Okay.
Again, blending my prior experience, but summary, just like having some of those other outcomes, understanding it's to a larger
Specific
contribution
outcomes,
across the
right.
city.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is, and I know with the chancellor, when they rolled out New York City Reads, that was already within the fiscal year, so that might not be captured. I'm just curious if the providers contracted in the, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting which contract specifically, the
Adolescent literacy.
thank you, the adolescent literacy. Are they aligning the work, the programmatic work to the chancellor's goals? Because if we have a disconnection, we're potentially setting back students.
Well, that's something we could always look into. So I'm not sure, I'm not very familiar with New York City Reads. Is it what?
So that's the chancellor's commitment, right? Every school district will now have to pick one of 3 curriculums as far as literacy is concerned.
Okay.
So if,
Yes, that's what we're gonna work on
For the new
TA providers.
Right.
Because, this is completely embracing a new approach to reading, right? So this is phonics based.
yeah, not just phonics, very comprehension based, but again, I completely understand this fiscal year 23.
Right.
Chancellor rolled it out mid-year, but there needs to be a very quick pivot. So if my concern is we gotta wait till next RFP, we're already too late in that connection in that pipeline. So if you don't have an answer, that's fine. I just want to flag that. But other than that, thank you so much. You've been super helpful.
Thank you.
Can't get enough of us.
I said I was gonna be quiet, right? So, once upon a time ago, I was heavily involved with this project, this group. And, my question, because I'm hearing that there's an entrepreneurship component being built in.
Economic development.
Say it again?
Economic development.
Economic development, okay. When I was previously involved, I was advocating for trade programs for persons with autism, disability, things like that. I see that entrepreneurship is great, but the highest percentage of persons on the low income scale are persons with disabilities and in our autistic community. So what services are being funded for them to help lift them out of economic poverty?
So short answer is that I don't have the data in front of me to be able to determine of our enrolled participants, how many identify as an individual with a disability, and then exactly what services is needed and what services is being achieved for that particular or that particular demographic of people. So I could find out, and we don't necessarily, we target, it's open to anybody in that particular thing. So it's not a specific target directly per se to say this is a special focus
The low
right
income,
now.
the low income population.
I'm talking about people with disabilities.
Right,
specifically.
but they
Okay.
are, they.
Have the highest, right.
Percentages of low income poverty.
Mhm.
So if the concept of DSCG is to help lift communities out of poverty, and that is the highest percentage of poverty stricken individuals, then shouldn't we be targeting skills for them to help lift them out of poverty?
We should, we should, yeah, we should, yes. But again, providers do the outreach and enrollment of the people that come in for the services. So it's just a matter of also emphasizing, look, this is a big catchment area that you should be focusing on and enrolling to your program. And then we also need to make sure that our system is set up to capture that so we can be able to report on it as well. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you very much. Old business, or remind them. Goes without saying how important it is for the upcoming meeting on January 25th, that we should have a full quorum in person in order to catch up on all the work that needed to be done. With all the holidays coming up, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Christmas, and New Year's, I want to wish every one of you and your families wonderful holidays, festive season, and a great new year. Once again, the next meeting will be Thursday, January 25th. Happy holidays, and this meeting is concluded at 7:42 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance.